On March 28, 1757, Paris gathered to witness a punishment so brutal it would shock Europe and mark the end of an era. Robert-François Damiens, a simple servant, had done the unthinkable. He struck King Louis XV with a small knife. The wound barely pierced the king's clothes, but in an age where monarchs ruled by divine right, even touching the king was treated as an attack on God himself. For this desperate act of protest, Damiens was sentenced to the most terrifying punishment in French law, dismemberment by horses. At the Place d'I in front of thousands, his flesh was torn with red-hot pincers, molten lead poured into his wounds, and his hand burned with sulfur. Then, 4 horses were tied to his limbs. But instead of a swift death, the animal struggled, prolonging his agony for hours. Executioners had to cut into his joints before his body finally gave way. Witnesses described the scene as unbearable. What began as royal justice turned into a public horror. This spectacle, meant to prove the monarchy's absolute power, instead revealed its cruelty and weakness. Even officials and nobles recoiled in disgust. Philosophers like Voltaire seized on the event as proof that such barbarity had no place in an age of reason. Though intended to crush defiance, Damiens' death helped fuel the growing discontent that, within a generation, would ignite the French Revolution. Robert-François Damiens remains remembered, not as a dangerous assassin, but as the last man in France, torn apart by horses, a tragic symbol of how absolute power, when threatened, answers with unimaginable cruelty, and how such cruelty can hasten its own downfall.